All right, good morning, everyone. It is April 12th, 2022, and this is the meeting of the California Fair Political Practices Commission Law and Policy Committee. Ms. Lincoln, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Chair Match?
Here. Proceed with item number 1, public comment for items not on today's agenda. Do we have any public comment for items not on the agenda? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to item 2, approval of the March 8th, 2022 committee minutes. Baker, do you have any edits or comments on the minutes?
I do not. Move to approve.
I will second. Do we have any public comment on item 2? Hearing and seeing none, Ms. Lincoln, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Chair Match?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Right along, we'll proceed to item number 3, and that is our legislative update. And with us is our senior FEPC Legislative Counsel, Ms. Nakano. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Matich and Commissioner Baker. Nice to see you both. I'll be providing updates today on the progress of sponsored bills and developing amendments, and on a couple updates to other commission-related bills. I'm pleased to report that all of our bills have passed out of the first policy committee. 3 of them passed with bipartisan support. One of the bills, AB 1798 by Assemblymember Bryan, making a minor change to the ad disclaimer rules, passed out of the Assembly Elections Committee on consent and passed on the Assembly floor on consent, so that bill is now with the Senate. AB 2172 by Assemblymember Cervantes, relating to eliminating duplicate paper filings, also passed out of the Assembly Elections Committee and with a unanimous vote. Staff is continuing to work on amendment language with the Secretary of State's office to ensure that the bill will work with their existing systems. SB 921 by Senator Newman, relating to the creation of public records of digital campaign ads, also known as the DATA Act, passed out of the Assembly Elections Committee and was referred to the Judiciary Committee. My understanding is that the Judiciary Committee has more recently requested to hear bills that may affect online platforms. We are also contemplating amendments to exempt news media organizations from the bill. These organizations were inadvertently roped in, and we are working on language to take them out. We are also contemplating amendments that put a minimum dollar amount threshold on which platforms would be subject to the bill in order to avoid overburdening small platforms. SB 1483 by Senator Glazer, relating to the Commission's new Political Reform Education Program, passed out of the Senate Elections Committee, also unanimously. The bill was amended to require the existing $10 per day late filing fee to be waived if a person completes the education program for the underlying late reporting violation. And this is consistent with the goal of the bill and the goal of the program to create an alternative to penalties. Also, I'm very pleased to report that Senator Ochoa Bogue will co-author this bill with Senator Glazer. And I'll pause here for any questions or discussion about our sponsored bills.
No, thank you.
Ms. Nakano, just for purposes of the record, you mentioned 2 potential amendments, one relating to exempt news organizations and the other for creating thresholds. Can you briefly, my understanding is that those amendments were necessitated by a reading of a recent federal appellate court decision and ways to make that law stronger, in the sense that if it ever were challenged, that we think that would help it withstand judicial challenge. Is that correct?
That's correct. There was a case in Maryland, and the court decided that it was overbroad because it included news, because it did not include thresholds. So that's kind of our guiding principles there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll move on to a couple other updates on other commission-related bills. AB 2158 by Assemblymember Mike Fong would extend the local agency ethics training requirements to school districts, county offices of education, and charter schools. The Commission is currently required to consult with local agencies that wish to create their own local ethics training curricula, and our IT unit provides technical support for individuals who take their training online. So we do expect some workload increase from this bill, and I will be reporting on specific costs for this and all of the other PRA bills at next month's meeting. SB 1352 by Senator Allen, relating to reporting contributions before the 90-day pre-election period, was amended. The bill will now reduce the thresholds for reporting contributions to 2,500 or more and would require reporting within 5 days of meeting that threshold. And the current thresholds are $5,000 and 10 days. Cuts those in half. SB 1360 by Senator Umberg was also amended. This is relating to advertisement disclosures. The bill previously made some changes to the top contributor thresholds, but the recent amendments revert that back to existing law. And those are my updates for other commission-related bills. Happy to take any questions or discussion.
Commissioner Bailey?
Thank you. Yep, thank you for the update. On Mr. Fong's bill, AB 2158, a couple questions on that one. The first is that so local agencies can have their own ethics one, and we can be available to them for suggestions or otherwise for their own ethics training, but they can do this now. Is that what you were saying?
They're not required to, but I think they can if they want to.
Okay. And then I know that the issue of charter schools, and this may be something you'll have to look into or we'll just need to know something about, but as this one proceeds, I'll be interested in finding out. Charter schools, I think, are organized under the Corporations Code for nonprofits, potentially, and have certain ethics rules related to them. I guess my question would be, either next week when we have the full commission or otherwise, when we talk about what existing law is, if there's something specific to charter schools that this would change, that often becomes a pretty rigorous debate in the legislature and in the public realm. What should charter schools be required to do, and what are they currently required to do? That will be helpful for my purposes in understanding this bill as it goes forward. Thank you.
You're
Thank
talking
you.
about within the scope of the...
Correct. Well, more along the lines, they're certainly within the scope of the Political Reform Act, but if there is already some other ethics requirement on them, since this is a bill that would be potentially imposing another one, it'll be helpful as this goes forward, especially if the author were to ask us to weigh in on it at all, or if we choose to. I don't intend a major research project. It would just be understanding what's already within the scope of what this bill is trying to address that they're subject to, so we have an understanding should we take a position on it in the future. Reasonable?
Yeah, I think
Can you
so.
translate it?
Well, I'm just trying to, sort of confine the scope of it,
Yeah,
if
sure.
you will.
Mhm.
I think it's fair to ask Ms. Nakano to report back on what charter schools currently have an obligation to under the Political Reform Act, maybe 1090, because I think there was a bill recently regarding charter schools, clarifying the application there. Beyond that, I'm not sure where else we would, questions about whether they're subject to the open meeting laws,
Sure.
et cetera. I think those are kind of outside the scope of what we...
Yes, that I would not. It would be related to, how can I try to do that? It's a little bit too narrow, that just what are they confined to do within the Political Reform Act, but if there is another statute that does, maybe it's not in the Political Reform Act, but it does effectively the same thing that they're obliged by, I wouldn't expect a very super detailed understanding. It's just, if they're not covered by the PRA, is there some other statute that they already are, or is there nothing? Does that sound like enough of a scope definition?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and start with that and
Thank you.
Okay.
see where you go.
Okay, and
So we're not
relating
going
to
further.
ethics training requirements in that
That's
world?
it, ethics training,
Understood.
that seems to be the scope of the legislation.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Cohen?
That concludes my updates.
AB 975, any word on, where that's at in the process, where it might go in the process?
It passed out of the first house. I don't believe it's been set for hearing in the next house. There's still waiting on all the first house bills to move out of policy committee, so for now, that's just sitting.
And going back to AB 2158, do you have any idea of when that would be heard in committee?
2158 was actually assigned to the Assembly Education Committee. It doesn't appear it's going to go through the elections committees. It has passed out of education and is now with appropriations.
Thank you, Ms. Nakano.
I'm sorry, yeah, did have one. It was the, just going through the rest of your memo that was published with the agenda. There, Mr. Levine has a bill, AB 1783, and trying to understand what this is getting at. Because it sounds like it's set for hearing, but I'm curious what issue that one, as they're portraying the need for the bill, what is the bill trying to address? Do you happen to know?
I've gotten very little background from them on this. I'm hoping that we'll see more once the committee analysis comes out, and I can continue to request that from them, but I have very little information at this point.
Sure, that's helpful. That was I believe that was my only other question regarding your report. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, one other, now it made me think. AB 775, any update on the timing on that? I think where we left it was, you were communicating with the author's office about some potential amendments to address prior concerns, and so my understanding is you have done that, and so do we have any updates at this point?
My understanding is that because the bill has passed out of the first house, similar to 975, they're dealing with all of the bills that still need to pass out of the first house. Once those are dealt with and we're into the second house, then that's when they'll take this up.
What does that mean in terms of the calendar and timing?
First house bills, or bills must pass out of the first house by the end of this month. So we could see those probably mid-May, starting mid-May.
I do see it's very helpful that you have the dates in there. It looks like May 27th is the House of Origin. Is that the deadline that you're referring to?
I was looking at the policy committee deadline.
No, that makes total sense. But in terms of that might, like, you're basically saying unlikely that the Senate's going to focus time on a bill that's already passed out of the Assembly until after that time frame?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess does that mean the author, are they just not engaging it with us at all yet, or others on what's some of the potential amendments that we discussed? Everything's sort of waiting?
I've had some contact with them. It's been fairly minimal. They've been there. I think their priority has been on their bills that still need to get out of the first house.
Understood. Okay. Always be eagerly watching this one. I'm glad you raised it, given the high priority it is for the whole commission. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Nakano. Appreciate your report.
Thank you.
Public comment on item 3? And seeing none, proceed to our final item, discussion of items for the May 2022 committee meeting. Ms. Nakano, you will, of course, be back giving your legislative update. Commissioner Baker, any additional items?
I do not. I think that time of year will be plenty busy for what's happening in the legislature, so we'll look forward to that. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Baker.
Commissioner Baker?
Aye.
Chair Matich?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. See you next month.